You know, in the long history of databases, some releases are just, well, they're just updates. But every now and then, one comes along that's a genuine pivot point. Today, we're talking about one of those, SQL Server 2022. This was the release that completely redefined the relationship between the data in your server room and the power of the cloud.
So, before we get into all the cool features, let's just pause and think about this question. Because really, this is the core problem SQL Server 2022 was built to solve. I mean, how do you handle data that's everywhere at once? Some in your data center, some in the cloud, all while keeping it secure, fast, and smart. It's a huge challenge.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the big idea, this cloud-connected chapter. Then we'll get into the details of how it bridges to Azure, why it's such a trusted platform, peek under the hood at the engine upgrades, and finally, wrap up with its legacy.
Right, let's dive in. The first thing to get is that this wasn't just another incremental update. For Microsoft's biggest database, this was a whole new philosophy, a fundamental shift in strategy. The date to remember is November 2022. This is when SQL Server 2022 hit the scene. And it wasn't just a new version number. It really was the beginning of a whole new way of thinking about how we manage data in this hybrid world we all live in.
And this right here, this is the headline. This is the big takeaway. More than any version that came before it, SQL Server 2022 was built from the ground up to be a seamless, powerful bridge between your traditional on-premise servers and the massive potential of the Azure cloud.
So, how did it actually build that bridge? This is where things get really interesting. We're not just talking about little features that can kind of talk to the cloud. No. We're talking about features that are deeply woven into the fabric of Azure.
First up, Azure Synapse Link for SQL. Now, traditionally, if you wanted to analyze your day-to-day operational data, you had to go through this slow, painful process called ETL, extract, transform, and load. It's a bottleneck. Well, this feature just completely blows that up. Imagine you're running a website, and you want to see sales trends as they happen, not tomorrow morning. Synapse Link makes that a reality. And that's the key phrase right there, analytics without ETL. It means you can query your live operational data for insights pretty much instantly. You don't have to slow down your main database, and you don't have to wait for those overnight data jobs to finish. It's a huge deal.
And here's how simple it is conceptually. You've got your live data humming along in SQL Server. Synapse Link creates this continuous, really low-impact bridge to the cloud. And just like that, you're running some seriously powerful analytics in Azure in real time. The data silos are gone, you just get immediate answers.
But wait, there's more. The integration goes deeper. With Azure Purview, you get this amazing, unified view of all your data so you can actually govern and control it properly. And then there's disaster recovery. You can literally fail over your on-prem database directly to an Azure SQL managed instance. That's some serious built-in resilience.
Okay, connecting to the cloud is fantastic, but it doesn't mean a thing if you can't trust your data. So let's talk about how SQL Server 2022 really doubled down on security and making sure your data is what it says it is.
This one is a really big deal. Ledger tables. Think about the central idea of blockchain, right? An unchangeable, verifiable chain of records. Well, SQL Server 2022 brought that same kind of cryptographic proof right into the database. So if you are, say, a bank, you can now have a truly tamper-evident log of every single change made to a transaction.
Honestly, the best way to think of it is like having a digital notary that's built right into your database tables. For any company that has to deal with audits, compliance, or just needs a rock-solid, unchallengeable history of their data, this is an absolute game changer.
All right, let's pop the hood and see what's going on inside the engine. Because SQL Server 2022 wasn't just about the cloud. It also delivered some major upgrades to its core performance, making life a whole lot better for developers and DBAs.
Just take a look at contained availability groups. The old way of doing high availability, man, it was a tangled mess of dependencies. It made failovers way more complicated than they needed to be. The new way in 2022, so much cleaner. Each group is totally self-contained, which makes managing failovers and disaster recovery way easier. And there was so much more packed in there. The query optimizer got a lot smarter, tackling a classic performance problem with parameter-sensitive plan optimization. TempDB, which can be a huge bottleneck on busy systems, got some major enhancements. Plus, you got tighter security with Microsoft Defender integration and big upgrades to the query store. Just a ton of good stuff. And what about the people actually writing the code? Well, they got some goodies too. T-SQL added new functions to make working with time series data a lot less painful. And Polybase, the data virtualization feature, got way better, letting you query data directly from things like S3 storage or even REST APIs.
So, when you put it all together, the deep cloud integration, the built-in trust with features like Ledger, and the smarter engine, what does it all add up to? What's the real legacy of SQL Server 2022?
I think this quote really nails it. SQL Server 2022 wasn't just a database, it was a trusted data platform. That's the shift. It was the moment it became something more than just a place to dump your data.
And this is what you should really take away. It became a platform that was truly ready for the biggest challenges of our time. Ready for compliance with features like Ledger, ready for real-time analytics thanks to Synapse Link, and ready to scale seamlessly in a hybrid world.
So SQL Server 2022 really set the stage for the hybrid cloud era. But, the next chapter is already being written as we speak. And it leaves us with this really fascinating question to chew on. What happens when AI stops being just something that uses the database and actually becomes a core part of the database engine itself? Now that is a story for another time.